Welcome to the deep dive. We've all seen the debates online, the articles about open relationships, polyamory, things like cuckolding. But when you actually look at the data, most women seem to reject these dynamics, or at least strongly prefer monogamy. The big question is, why?
Yeah, and it's a question that often gets really lazy answers, doesn't it? People just say, oh, it's insecurity or maybe prudishness.
Yeah, exactly. Simplistic labels.
Totally. So our mission today is to kind of tear those down. We want to show you the deeper structures behind it all, the psychological, the evolutionary, even the cultural forces that make saying no actually a pretty rational, often adaptive response.
Yeah.
Like a psychological self-preservation.
That sounds like a great challenge. We're definitely going beyond the surface here. So for you listening, we've broken this down into 3 main layers we're going to investigate.
Oh, yeah.
First, your internal architecture, basically, personality and attachment styles, how they might pre-wire you for exclusivity. Second, we'll look at what we're calling the ancient alarm system, those deep evolutionary drives.
The old programming.
Exactly. And finally, the water we swim in, culture, personal history, things like trauma.
Right, the context. But before we dive in, let's maybe ground this with some numbers because, disinterest is the norm here.
Good point.
While you see estimates like maybe up to 60% of men have had cuckolding fantasies, for women, that number really drops. We're talking maybe 20, perhaps 33% max reporting similar fantasies.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is. And broader surveys
Yeah.
consistently show over half, like 55% plus of Americans, prefer complete traditional monogamy. So yeah, we're analyzing the mainstream view, not some fringe thing.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. Let's start with that internal architecture then. How do these sort of foundational personality traits and maybe those emotional blueprints from childhood lean a woman towards exclusivity? It sounds like you're saying it's not just random preference.
Not at all. It's often a core feature. If we look at the Big Five personality model, which is pretty well respected.
Yeah, the standard framework, right?
Right, monogamy preference lines up really well with certain traits. Take high conscientiousness. These are people who value order, discipline, clear rules, dependability, commitment.
Okay, so monogamy offers that structure.
Exactly. It provides clear relational lines. So when something like cuckolding comes up,
How does that look to someone high in conscientiousness?
it looks like chaos. Introducing another person, complex rules, unpredictability. It feels like a violation of the agreement, the established order. For them, monogamy minimizes risk, maximizes predictability. That's what they need. And interestingly, low conscientiousness is actually a strong predictor of infidelity. So structure matters.
Okay. And what about keeping the peace, avoiding conflict?
That's high agreeableness. Someone high in agreeableness really prioritizes harmony, cooperation. They want to minimize conflict.
And cuckolding seems inherently conflict prone.
Well, yeah. It's potentially a breeding ground for jealousy, competition, insecurity, really complex, tough emotions. So an agreeable person often instinctively avoids that level of complexity. It threatens the relational peace they value so much. It's about minimizing disruption proactively.
Then there are those who just prefer the familiar, right? Like sticking to what they know.
Low openness to
Yeah,
experience.
People high in openness, they might be the ones exploring non-monogamy. But someone low in openness prefers routine, familiarity, traditional ways.
So cuckolding is just too far out.
It seems like a risky deviation from the trusted model. It's not necessarily a lack of imagination, it's just a preference for the known, a secure path.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, this brings us to anxiety. High neuroticism. This dynamic sounds like it could be an emotional nightmare for someone prone to anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. One source called it a veritable minefield of psychological triggers. People high in neuroticism often struggle with emotional stability, anxiety, self-doubt.
And for any kind of non-monogamy to work, you need a really strong, reliable, secure base in the relationship. If you're already battling fears of abandonment or inadequacy, inviting a literal rival into the mix, that's profoundly destabilizing.
So rejecting it is self-protection.
Absolutely. A primary psychological defense mechanism to keep their emotional world stable.
Okay, so if personality is the architecture, attachment theory gives us the emotional blueprints from early life. How do those blueprints influence this?
Right. Attachment styles dictate so much about how we handle closeness, intimacy, fear of abandonment. Think about someone with an anxious attachment style.
Okay. Always worried about being left.
Exactly. They live with this persistent fear of abandonment, constantly monitoring their partner's commitment. So for them, the cuckolding scenario, It's like their deepest fear made real.
A direct threat of replacement.
The literal manifestation of their existential dread. It feels like an absolute emotional impossibility because it hits their core wound directly.
Wow. Okay, that's clear. But what about the opposite end? The avoidant attachment style. They value independence, maybe struggle with too much closeness. Wouldn't they potentially like something that creates distance?
It seems logical, right? But here's the paradox research shows. They often reject non-monogamy too.
Why?
Because successful ethical non-monogamy actually requires more communication, more negotiation, more processing of feelings, more emotional labor.
Ah, okay, so it ramps up the very thing they try to avoid.
Precisely. The avoider person wants less emotional entanglement, and suddenly they're faced with needing, like, triple the communication about boundaries, feelings, logistics. So the rejection isn't usually about jealousy. It's more about resisting that overwhelming emotional demand.
That's fascinating. It flips the script sometimes. Demanding exclusivity is actually about reducing emotional labor. Okay, before we move on from the internal stuff, we have to tackle the insecurity thing head on. It's the go-to accusation, isn't it?
It really is. And we need to dismantle that myth that saying no automatically equals insecurity. Often it's the opposite.
How so?
Well, think about women with high self-esteem, a strong sense of self-worth. They might see exclusivity not as a limitation, but as the standard for deep engagement.
They expect to be prioritized.
Undeniably and uniquely prioritized. They're confident enough to hold that boundary. They don't need external validation through complex scenarios. For them, exclusivity isn't about hiding security. It's the condition that actually amplifies passion and value within the core relationship.
Okay. And just quickly, what about the securely attached woman? Emotionally resilient, stable, does she typically reject this too?
Well, theoretically, this securely attached woman has the tools, right? High trust, good communication, low reactivity. She could potentially manage non-monogamy.
But she often doesn't.
Often, she still chooses monogamy. It's a rational choice. Why? Because monogamy most simply and reliably meets her core needs for safety and dependable connection. She might weigh the emotional costs and benefits and just decide the complexity isn't worth the potential gain in novelty. It's a rational, low-effort choice for optimal security, essentially.
Okay, so personality attachment. That's the blueprint we inherit or develop. Now let's go deeper to that foundation underneath the ancient alarm system. It's kind of humbling to think a modern fantasy rejection could link back to million-year-old survival code.
Yeah, we're moving into evolutionary psychology here. And the cornerstone really is parental investment theory. You have to look at the fundamental asymmetry.
Between male and female investment in offspring.
Exactly. Female investment, we're talking gestation, lactation, years of care for vulnerable young. It's immense. It's obligatory, non-transferable. Historically, a woman's reproductive success absolutely hinged on securing a partner's reliable, long-term commitment. Protection, resources, essential for offspring survival.
And that biological reality created different danger signals, different risk assessments for men and women when it came to infidelity.
Totally. It led to distinct jealousy triggers. And this is one of the most robust findings in all of sexual psychology, by the way.
Okay, so what's the key difference?
Male jealousy evolved primarily to guard against sexual infidelity. The core evolutionary risk for men was paternity uncertainty, investing resources in another man's child.
Right.
Female jealousy, on the other hand, evolved more as a commitment detection system. It guards intensely against emotional infidelity.
Why emotional?
Because for a woman, ancestrally speaking, the biggest danger signal wasn't just the sex act itself. It was her partner forming an emotional bond with a rival. That signaled a potential catastrophic withdrawal of vital resources, time, protection, support, everything needed for her and her offspring.
Okay, so let's connect that back directly. A man proposes cuckolding, maybe frames it as just physical, no emotions involved. Why does the female brain often react like it's a major threat?
Because her brain's ancient operating system is fundamentally wired to see intimacy with a rival, any intimacy, as a potential precursor to emotional bonding and resource diversion. That system, evolved over millennia to secure long-term investment, just fires up.
Even if, logically, she understands the rules.
The deep adaptive alarm system can override logic. It screams a warning about potential abandonment and resource loss, the core ancestral threat. So her aversion isn't just some modern hang-up. You can see it as a logical, adaptive, protective response baked in by deep time.
Wow. Okay, so biology laid down that vulnerability, that sensitivity to commitment threats. How does culture then build on that? Let's talk about mononormativity, the water we swim in.
Right. Monogamy is just the default setting in most Western societies, isn't it? It's reinforced everywhere. History, religion, law, especially around things like inheritance, marriage.
It creates a really powerful social expectation.
Absolutely. And deviations, like consensual non-monogamy, often face real stigma. Studies show non-monogamous people can be seen as less moral, less trustworthy, maybe less stable.
So rejecting something like cuckolding can partly be about fitting in, an act of identity conformity.
For sure. By sticking with sexual exclusivity, a woman aligns herself with the dominant, accepted cultural script. It affirms her identity as a good partner, provides a kind of social security, and shields her from judgment or sanctions. Monogamy is often just the path of least social resistance.
We also absolutely have to talk about the personal layer here, trauma and betrayal. This isn't abstract. It's about lived experience shaping boundaries.
This is so crucial. A history of being cheated on, or any significant relational betrayal, leaves deep psychological scars. It creates hypervigilance.
Understandably.
And here's the critical point for some trauma survivors. Consensual cuckolding, even though it's agreed upon, might feel structurally identical to the original betrayal that caused the trauma.
You mean her brain and body can't actually tell the difference in that moment between the consensual scenario and the past hurt?
Precisely. The visuals, the emotional dynamics, the presence of a third party, the body's trauma memory can completely override intellectual consent.
So the act itself becomes re-traumatizing.
It can be intensely re-traumatizing. It bypasses any intellectual agreement and hits that raw emotional memory of the original wound. In these cases, her no isn't just a preference. It's a non-negotiable, trauma-informed, self-protective boundary. And it absolutely has to be respected.
Okay, this naturally leads us into the practical side, the relational dynamic. For anyone listening who's facing this kind of mismatch in desire, how do you navigate it? It can feel like a total impasse.
It can feel like that, yeah, but only if you assume her rejection is just about the specific act. Really, this mismatch can be a huge opportunity for deeper connection, if handled right.
How so? Where do you start?
Well, first, it helps to understand desire itself, particularly the difference between spontaneous desire, the kind that seems to pop up out of nowhere, and responsive desire.
Responsive desire being?
That's desire that needs activation. It gets switched on by feeling safe, close, seen, desired, emotionally connected.
Ah, okay, so if a woman's desire tends to be responsive, her rejecting a fantasy might not be a final no to novelty, but maybe a reaction to the emotional foundation not feeling solid enough.
That's often exactly it. The proposal might be landing wrong because the essential groundwork, feeling consistently secure, prioritized, cherished, isn't fully there first. You need to focus on strengthening that feeling of unique value and safety outside the bedroom.
And the conversation itself, it needs to be handled carefully, right? You can't just spring it on someone.
Oh, definitely not. The discussion needs a neutral, safe space, not the bedroom. And using I statements is key. Own your feelings, your curiosity.
Like, I feel curious about exploring this, not why aren't you open to this?
Exactly. It avoids blame. Frame it as your internal exploration you want to share about. Invite her perspective rather than pushing for her consent or trying to convince her. The tone should be curiosity, not lobbying.
Okay. So, what if, after all that careful communication, the fantasy is still a hard no? Maybe for trauma reasons or just a firm boundary. What are the resolution tools then? You mentioned exploring the essence, not the act.
Right. First, and most importantly, respect the boundary. Immediately, gracefully. Pushing against a hard no, especially repeatedly, is a massive violation of trust. It will likely cause irreparable damage.
Got it. Respect the no, then what?
Then you dig into the underlying psychological need behind the fantasy. Because it's rarely just about the specific mechanics of involving a third person. Ask yourself, what's the essence? Is it about novelty, feeling powerful, a different kind of connection, praise, vulnerability?
Can you give some concrete examples? How do you explore that essence safely just between the two of you?
Sure. So if the underlying theme seems to be, say, power and control, maybe you explore BDSM dynamics, submission domination role play within the couple. Focus might be on her submitting to him or him serving her, but it stays contained. No third party.
Okay. What if it's novelty and excitement?
Then you consciously inject novelty elsewhere. New kinks, maybe toys, different locations, trying things from a yes, no, maybe list together. That list, by the way, is a great tool-structured, low-pressure way to see where your desires might overlap.
And what if the fantasy, deep down, is about wanting intense praise or validation, like wanting to see your partner desire you fiercely?
You can build scenarios around that. Maybe role play where he explicitly praises her desirability compared to others, perhaps anonymous others, reinforcing her unique value to him. The key is identifying that psychological itch and finding creative, mutually agreeable ways to scratch it together without crossing that hard boundary of exclusivity.
That makes a lot of sense. Find the need, meet it differently. Okay, this has been incredibly illuminating. Can you summarize the core takeaway for us? What's the most vital thing for our listener to grasp about this aversion?
I think the main thing is this. The aversion to no is almost never about some personal failing, some deficit or weakness or lack of adventurousness in the woman.
Right, it's not about her being broken.
Not at all. It's usually rooted in a very deep, often adaptive need for a specific kind of relational proof. Proof of security, proof of unwavering priority, proof of that unique, irreplaceable intimacy that comes with an exclusive bond. For many, perhaps most, women, that specific form of exclusivity is the loudest, clearest evidence of love, value, and lasting commitment.
That's a powerful reframing. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to consider. Maybe the conversation about a taboo fantasy, regardless of the outcome, acts as a kind of diagnostic tool for the whole relationship.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe the real measure of the relationship's strength isn't found in the complexity of the sex you have, but in your shared ability to navigate profound disagreement, like this kind of desire mismatch, with genuine mutual respect, trust, and deep emotional safety. It's the negotiation itself, how you handle the difference, that reveals the true health of the connection.